shall we just, would you like to ask a few questions, stuff you're not getting, and maybe we can look at it that way around? Is there any questions you'd like to ask me to better understand this?
What problems are they?
They're
not mine.
they're not, well, then you've made them yours.
But, I mean, what, there are problems and that's nothing to do with anything or anyone?
Well, give me an example.
Well, I got bullied at school, or that seemed to be my problem.
Right, okay, so you were bullied at school?
Yeah.
Right. So that was an experience you had, which was not a complete experience, right?
Well, I got the receiving and that was the experience.
Yeah, it was your experience. Yeah. It was not a complete experience, however. So therefore, you being bullied at school will keep reoccurring in your life in one shape or another. In your relationships, you will demonstrate that in your life. Because it has to stop.
It did.
Okay. Okay, so you don't have a problem with that.
But no, I was saying at the time that was my problem. But
well, because yes, I'm talking about now. We're talking about
But no, I was trying to understand what you meant by it's not. There's a problem, but it's not yours. It's just a problem. I was trying to understand that.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously the problem is there. I'm not denying that. And what has happened to you, the trauma has happened, and it could be anything, can't it? It could be, your loved one could die. That's a pretty big problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the point is, until you really understand what has happened, fully understood that process of what dying was, you will keep on reliving that in one, not necessarily with everyone around you dying, but things will happen in your life until you understand that. And then it stops. But I mean, dying is not a good example because in the sense, it wasn't something you possessed in that sense. But if something happened to you, like you say bullying or an idea like that is a better example. But I mean, everyone has problems in their life, don't they? We all do.
But I think, it's because it felt like it hurt me, so therefore it was my problem.
Well, you're talking about bullying now.
Yeah.
You're talking about bullying. Yeah, well, of course, I mean, every child is so vulnerable because it's coming into this world and already it's created this split, isn't it? It's already become this little individual thing separate from everything else. It's already happened. I mean, I don't know what age it was, 6, 7, whatever it was. Little, whatever. And of course, when I say it's not your problem, I'm not diminishing this. I'm not diminishing problems by saying it's not your problem. I'm saying that the more you identify with the problem, the more it has energy, is what I'm saying. And also, I mean, I think with examples like bullying, it is the sort of psychological thing you carry around with you. You can carry, I mean, a lot of people do carry it forever. The rest of their lives. They've never come to terms with it. They've never understood it.
It's a hard one to understand.
Well, yes, because it's just brutal, nasty violence, isn't it?
It makes no sense to me.
It is no sense to it. No violence makes any sense. But nonetheless, it is not, I know it's hard to say, but it's not a complete experience. When someone dies close to you, from your perspective, it's still not a complete experience.
Misunderstand better.
But it's not a complete experience. You think, well, how could that not be a complete experience? My loved ones have died. Well, you haven't died. So that was not a complete experience for you. And you do not know what death is. So that's not a complete experience for you. It doesn't mean to say you don't cry, you don't grieve. Of course you have those natural processes take place. But nonetheless, it is not complete. And if you do not see that, if you cannot see that it's incomplete, you will carry on living that in some way. Does anybody else have a thought, question? Yeah.
Can I just clarify what you said just a moment? When there's an energy behind an issue, with whatever you perceive your issue to be, are you saying that when you accept that energy, it's just the energy behind it, it's not, you don't own that issue, it will just go away? Is
Yeah,
that
I mean,
what you're saying?
Ultimately, yes, and that's a
Okay.
really hard thing to do.
Okay, no,
If you are conscious enough,
Yeah.
and this is much more
No, I get
advanced stuff,
Yeah, I get that.
but if you are conscious enough and you can actually watch those pulses
Yeah.
and not have your brain engage with those pulses,
Yeah.
that's advanced. But
And-
but that is ultimately true. If you don't engage, if you do not interpret the pulse, it will dissipate.
Okay.
It
So,
will dissipate.
as the years go on and people follow patterns,
Yeah.
then the energy behind those patterns that they're deciding to own,
Yes.
do you believe that they get stronger and therefore is harder to dissipate, or is there not is there or isn't there a strength in time because of what you're saying?
Everything will get harder and more difficult until you wake up to it, because that's ultimately what you hope will happen. That you finally will have had enough. That's how it happens for most people, actually. They've finally had enough.
Yeah.
And there is that possibility of waking up. It has to get pretty bad. Most people just carry on doing the same thing for years and years. But actually, that's what, that is the one hope many people have, that is the opportunity to wake up when you've had enough.
And just finally, within that, because I deal with grief,
Ah.
within that, do you see that patterns are ancestral?
Yes.
Because I've
Yes.
seen that.
Oh,
I've
God.
seen that a lot.
Oh, but this is what I said to you at the very beginning.
Okay.
I said, look, we come into this world with baggage, and let's pretend we don't because it's too
Okay.
complicated.
So I'd just like
But-
to understand your view.
But we do. And, we at some point, it has to stop. At some point, someone has to take responsibility and say, it stops here. Each of us has that opportunity now. It stops here. And generations back, you are embodiment of generation. You find the same patterns, not just in your life, but in every family's life. It's incredible to actually observe. If anyone's doing and want to do a thesis, do that. It is absolutely astonishing.
I've come across that a lot.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hell. It's incredible. And people say, it's just DNA. Or no, it's not DNA. It's just their family. It's just cultural. No, it's neither. It's something above both, which is metaphysical, and something weird is going on, which is just this energy pattern going on and on. Alcoholism, gambling, abuse, you name it, you've seen it. It goes on throughout the generation, throughout entire family groups. But the point is, you say, well, either I'm going to carry on living this crap and going to do the same to the next generation, or you're going to say it stops here. I'm going to wake up. And we all now have that choice, unfortunately. Before, you could have just carried on and had more of that rubbish. But now, actually, I've just pointed that out to you. So you have to take responsibility for that. And it said it ends here with me, the first conscious person in my family. And it stops. Yeah? There's a challenge.
Is that complete? The concept is stop the pattern?
It stops the pattern. It stops the pattern. Because the pattern is not a bad thing, son. It's what it is. We make it, you may say it's a bad thing, but it's not actually. It's just trying to be understood. It actually wants to end. Any other questions?
My English is weak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I did ask if we needed anyone to help here, but I'm sorry.
But I want to speak about 2 points. One is a question. Why we are just carrying a thought or luggage of thought of luggage, which is the past negative. Why just we are focusing upon the negative one, we don't focus upon the positive, and we can carry it with us to the future or to the moment. This is number one.
Okay.
And as there is a sample, we have to deal with life like a mirror that reflecting all kind of events, but just not marking inside it, like in the mind, like a mirror. If you watch the mirror and you was wearing good clothes and handsome and everything.
Yeah.
So it's in the mirror.
Yeah.
Then when you come again wearing a mask and horror shape, but the mirror is a mirror, nothing inside it, just reflecting.
Yeah.
So I guess what I get from the whole idea is that we should be like the mirror, similar to the mirror.
All right.
Then
Okay. Well, let's deal with your first one first, because you talked about why. I mean, you think I'm talking here. You're saying I'm talking about negative thoughts, right?
Yeah.
You're saying, but we have good things too. Good things happen to us, and why can't we use that to go into the future?
Yeah.
Right. Well, the reason is you don't need them, because it's already there. You see, every thought is from the past. Every thought you have, whether it's a thought of love or God or heaven, or indeed of killing somebody, it's all from the past. Now, you can have good experiences, of course. You can have good thoughts. Of course you can. But the point is, it's finished. It doesn't matter whether it's good or it's bad. It doesn't matter if you've experienced God. The question is, are you experiencing God? Well, I don't care if you have experienced God. What I want to know is, are you experiencing God? Right? So, you don't need any thoughts from the past, whether good, bad, neutral, indifferent, in order to have something marvellous happen now. Because all of that is just made up. If you said, I really believe in, the brotherhood of man. I believe everyone should live in peace together, from a nice thought I've had from the past. But can you see that it's still just a thought? And what actually, if that whole process stopped, people would live in harmony together, and there would be a brotherhood of man. You don't need to have a thought saying, I want that to happen. It actually would happen if the whole process of thinking stopped like that. So, yes, the mind likes to play these games of good and bad thought, but actually it's just thought, isn't it? It's just, and so I think that may answer that. The second question was about a mirror and...
The second question?
It was a statement, it was an observation.
Yeah, it's just like what I understand why you want to let us know, like we have to be like a mirror. The mirror is reflecting what's happening in the moment, but not in the past.
Oh, I see,
yeah. Like good or even or bad images, but it's just reflecting what's the moment. And never reflecting the future, just at the same time.
Yeah, I suppose you could use that analogy. The difference, though, is that you have to be actively involved in the world. And the mirror isn't. Because my point is that once you've understood the process, then you are an active participant in the world. You are actually bringing more consciousness into the world, aren't you? And a mirror, it doesn't do that. The mirror is utterly indifferent. And some people believe in Zen and all this, Veda philosophy all says this, talks about pure consciousness and, and because I did this blog the other week saying that the purpose of life is to bring God into the world. And this guy wrote back and said, no, he just said, it is being, and so but I don't accept that. I don't accept that the purpose of life is just to be. I believe that the purpose of life is that once we know we become active in the world, to do things, and the mirror never does anything, does it? It just shows you what you are, and that's fine. But I want to have a mirror that sings and dances and does things, and actually is a positive thing in the world. Because it's not enough. It's not enough. I mean, the Buddha story of the Buddha. I mean, why did the Buddha go into the world? He went into the world because although he knew he had to tell others. He could have just stayed there and had a very nice time, watching Buddha television and drinking Buddha tea and getting Buddha fat. But no, he said, no, I'm going to go into the world because I have to tell others of what I've discovered. And he said, but the hardest thing was, not many people know this about Buddhism, but the real reason why he almost didn't do it was not because he had to go into the world, it was because he knew that what he had to say was that there is nobody there, that nobody is a person. And he thought that would be such a hard thing for people to understand and accept. They'd be so upset about it that he almost didn't do it for that reason. But that was his discovery, and that's what he took out into the world. So thank goodness the Buddha and Muhammad and Jesus and Moses and all these other people went into the world and said, look. Yeah? But then you've got to make it your own truth. It's no good just saying, oh, well, then that's it, then I just read this book and I'm now a good man and that's fine. You've got to make that your truth, haven't you? It's a living thing for you. So that's a long way from a mirror.
A living book.
It's a living book. Exactly. Any more questions? Or?
We say that the universe is expanding.
Yes.
So we're doing that mission too, right?
Yes, we are. We have to expand, don't we? I'm expanding the wrong way. But we have, of course, we must expand consciousness with that movement that we have to follow. Right? So.
Do you know when you say before you never see the complete experience? Is that because you think experience and you think is that are you having the experience without the experience?
Yes.
So that's why we never.
Well, you don't have a complete experience because you see it from your perspective in time and space. Yeah. I mean, this I is created through previous trauma, and as you have more and more trauma, so this sense of the I strengthens, and so increasingly you have more and more experience from your perspective, and it becomes less and less true, the more individual it becomes. I mean, it's logical, really, isn't it? How can it be how can it be a complete experience just from your perspective? It's impossible. It can't be, can it? No matter what had happened, I mean, you can see sometimes it's totally unjust or awful or being bullied, whatever might happen. I'm not saying that's good for that reason, but it is still incomplete, and the more is from that perspective. And, it's an incredibly hard thing to do. You say, well, how can you say that? I'm being beaten up or something's happening to me. How can you step outside from that and be whole about that? How can you possibly do that? In a way, you don't have to. Because really what you have to do is understand the process itself. And that is what is the salvation. Really. You don't have to. And of course, with therapy, you go through every experience. You can't. You don't have to. You have to understand the process itself that is taking place, then everything starts making sense. You only have to understand the process, not every individual experience.
I have the experience.
Why have the experience? Now that's interesting. Right, you want to get metaphysical about this. You have the experience because when you're a baby, and I said you're at your most true at that point, you had this consciousness which was, not differentiated between a sense of this consciousness and the world, right? But you didn't know it. And if I may just borrow from the Bible here, when Adam and Eve were forced out of the Garden of Eden, they were forced out because she ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, right? She wanted to understand. But Adam and Eve, sorry to use this analogy, but were naive. They didn't know. So we have to leave the Garden of Eden to know. So we have to go through this. We have to go through these experiences. As I say in my book, there's only one way to heaven, and right through hell. And we're all in hell right now. If you think you're separate and you think you're alone, you must be in hell. Right?
So you have to get lost to find your way back.
Right. Well, that's right, in a way. You have to go right through all of this. And you have to have all these experiences, and it has to get nasty. But you're here tonight. There must be a reason for that. Unless you were here looking for a warm and light place. But there's something happening, isn't there? Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here now. So that something is happening to you. And you're coming to the end of that. You're coming to the end of the darkness. And this is the wonderful moment. You've had enough. And that's what's happening to each and every one of us now. And but you have to go through that. My father never did. My father died with the past. I've had enough. I don't want anyone in this room to die saying I've had enough. I want everyone in this room to die saying I've not had enough. I want more and more and more of this extraordinary life. I want more of it. I'll just die from exhaustion, not because I've had enough. That's the way to die. But you have to go through this. Yes, you do. You have to leave the Garden of Eden because you're innocent. And you don't know you're in the Garden of Eden. And you have to go out into the world. And then you have enough experience that you return to the Garden of Eden as knowing beings. And that's the real truth. That's what makes you greater than the baby. Because you can do it as a knowing, fully formed human being. And that's a remarkable miracle. And that's what we have to do. Otherwise, if you never knew something, how is it of any use to you? It's no use, is it? If you never knew you were happy, if you never knew you were consciousness itself, if you never knew any of that, then how is that of any use to you? It's of no use at all. So you have to live it, unfortunately. But it's the right thing, it's what we have.
So just talking about the process, so using the example of bullying, for example, how would the process work with that, or to show you?
Well, bullying is not, we said it wasn't a brilliant example because it's, that was, but in terms of the process, it depends how it manifests. Are you talking about at the time?
Use addiction then, maybe.
Well, no, yeah, we can use that, but you talk about when the bullying happens as the child or when the person is now grown up?
Well, you said that it comes up and then you have to see the process.
The process,
to understand it, so how... The
process of what is left of that experience is an energy form which will have a pulse, which will be interpreted as a thought or emotion. And it is that process of that movement is what you have to come to understand itself. When you understand the movement itself that's occurring, that's what matters. The experience itself doesn't especially matter. Because it could be anything, and it is everything. You could be bullied, your mother didn't love you, you had to go to boarding school, you had too much homework, you met Jimmy Savile, etc., etc., etc. All sorts of things can happen to you. Right?
Yeah.
And do. And they'll all have the same expression fundamentally. They're all the same thing in the sense of what the process is that then takes place. Because it will still be the same pulse happening and it will be interpreted in a different way and it will manifest in a different way in the world, depending on the experience. In the sense that doesn't matter. What matters is what I just said, is the process itself. Because once you understand what's happening to you, how you have been created, and how you add energy to that creation, that's what matters. And that's why when you see something, this is the most marvellous thing of all, once you see it once, you've seen it for everything. Because it is the process itself that matters. Not that you were bullied, boarding school, etc. That doesn't particularly matter. Because if you do that, then you're in therapy. Because you're going to say, right, this month I'm going to deal with bullying. Next month I'm going to deal with my boarding school books. The following month I'm going to deal with the fact my mother didn't love me. The following month I'm going to deal with the fact my boyfriend ditched me. And so on. You're going to do that all your life. People are in therapy all their lives. Or do you want to see the process itself? And that's what I mean by that.
Seeing through the non-existence of the I.
Well, partly that, but it's more just understanding what is going on. Just if I say, look, I've just given you a key, right? Go away and use that, play with that, observe it, See for yourself. Experiment. You know, become conscious. Try it out. All these good things. It's nothing to do with me. You know, it's you. I'm giving this to you. You don't need me anymore. You've got the key. Use it. Play with it. Look at yourself. See that process for yourself. And if you say, well, this is absolute rubbish, the man must have been on drugs. Or, actually, he's got something here that's true. That's exactly what does happen. If I can be slow enough and so, see that this process creates me at the same time, and then suddenly you see this extraordinary spirit, you say, you know, he knew something, he had a point there, and you can use that. And it empowers you, doesn't it? It gives you then that insight. And then suddenly a lot of these processes stop. And all those patterns that were in your life will disappear. They'll start disappearing. And just through the observation of the process itself. And when you have, you know, going back full circle to why intention works, it works. I mean, I must say, Lynn did have several things she discovered here. One, intention works really well in a group. And here's the really bad news about intention that she discovered. Intention is from a place that doesn't understand human material need. She never found it worked if you just said, I really want to be rich. But if you said, please help my friend be free of cancer, and you get a group of people, it actually does work. But if you say, I just want another £1 million in the bank, she actually found it, I mean, people have said it has worked for them. She has actually found it didn't work for them. But the point was, the intention thing works when you are in connection with the potential, because the potential connected to the right expression is so powerful and so creative. It's creative anyway. That's why you've got patterns in your life. Your potential is creating patterns in your life because it will create whatever you want. But if you've bolted in the past, it will create the past into your life. It's that powerful. But you say, well, let's take that out and let's put in something much more extraordinary. But then extraordinary will appear in your life instead. It is that, it's an extraordinary gift you have. The potential, consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it, is so extraordinary and so powerful and so creative. If you harness it properly, you're given this gift. You're given this gift.
Not used as separate either.
But it's not you use it, we all use it wrongly, don't we? We just lock in our rubbish, don't we? We use it to throw all our garbage in it, and so we get more garbage in our lives. That's what we do with it. You know? Don't have to. Once you see that process. So that's really the point, the sweep of it rather than the individual experience is what matters.
I've listened intensely
Thank
to what you've been saying.
Thank you.
Very much. I've noticed in my own journey that forgiveness is quite key.
Forgiveness is everything.
Yeah, is that part of your book too?
It's a massive part of the book.
Ah, right. Okay.
Forgiveness, but you're not forgiving. You know, people say, you know, I really can't forgive that son of a gun. You know, why should I forgive? Bullied me at school, why should I forgive this person? I want to kick the backside of that person. But you're not forgiving that person. You're forgiving yourself. You're forgiving yourself for thinking for even a moment that you were this tiny little thing in space and time. I forgive myself for thinking I was less than I actually am. I forgive myself for that. Because that's really what you're forgiving. You can't forgive somebody else. You can only forgive the burden you still carry. That's all you can forgive. And that's a wonderful release. You know, and it is a very, very important thing. It is a releasing, though, for yourself. The Christians are trying to forgiving other people. You can't forgive other people, actually. It's meaningless. It's meaningless. You can only forgive the burden you're carrying. And that's, you know, that's a hard thing maybe to get, but that's the truth of the matter. Because it's you carrying it, nobody else. So you have to forgive yourself. And you have to forgive yourself for being so small. And you forgive yourself for not seeing you were magnificent. That's not bad. That's not so hard to do, is it? Then we can forgive ourselves for not being magnificent. But it's a very important part of the program. Very important part. Yes, it's probably the single most important tool in a sense, other than observing the process. Because it's like the great religions of the world. They all represent the different paths, I think. Christianity is the path of love. It is that I forgive. Buddhism is the path of the head. I will watch this process. Islam, I believe, is the path of service, of maybe peace, forgiveness. But that's enough. But Islam means I surrender, doesn't it? I cannot do this. I surrender to something greater, effectively. Yeah. And I think these are all separate ways that this can be done. And the Time Light program actually does represent all the different religions. And that's why some of the lessons work better for some than others. But forgiveness is, I suppose, a way of the heart in that sense, And it's a very powerful way for that sort of... I find that actually quite hard. I'm a real head guy, I understand the processes and that's, but I get that. I get the heart. That's the direct line. That is the direct line. But you can't do that if you do it in isolation. You see, forgiveness works when you've got the key. When you've got to have to understand all of this, and then you can forgive. Otherwise, you're trying to forgive somebody else. And what you're actually trying to forgive is that past experience itself. And for not understanding it. And that's what you're forgiving. And when you can do that, the process does end as well. But you've got to understand the whole thing first. That's why there's so much theory in this book, which I've tried to outline very briefly, even though I've been talking 2 hours. It still only touches it.